Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday of the fifth week of Easter. It is good to pause and pray with you and provide an update. Today the church invites us to read a very familiar passage from the Gospel of John, and it goes like this. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. The Gospel of the Lord. Vine and branch is a very familiar story from Jesus and John's Gospel. It got me to be thinking about my days in high school when I was playing basketball. For some reason, my freshman year I was brought up to the varsity, and I remember one game in particular. We were at home rather than at school for some odd reason, and so I showed up Sunday for the game, which means we probably missed some practices. But I just had a terrible game. I don't know, my body and mind did not work together, but it was real clear that there was some pruning going on by the coach that day and the week that followed that could get me back to bear more fruit. And in those days, that event caused me to work harder and more deliberately about knowing what kind of fruit I needed to bear for the good of the team, that we might be successful in our games. But it also taught me that there was some pruning that sometimes that I needed to do, things that I needed to let go of so that I could have new growth and new abilities and new physical stamina in my life. So it's always been a moment of learning as I look back on what I learned from, in those days, would have been Coach Dornbach. I guess probably why I remember that is I think that game cost me my letter as a freshman, which in those days seemed to be a pretty big deal. But here we are. Jesus says he wants us to bear fruit, that our lives are supposed to do something. And so that's the ultimate question. What is happening because of our living? And is this a time when perhaps we're being pruned about the kind of fruit that we need to be bearing? Is the fruit that Jesus asks of us, the fruit that demonstrates that we are his disciples, is this the kind of fruit that has something to do with how we love one another? Especially those most invisible to us, or perhaps most on the fringes of our world, or the world as a whole, or our country? What is the fruit? And the way we can bear fruit only is if we listen to the Lord's word, and it becomes part of us, and we always continue to be connected to the vine. For he is the vine, and we know it, his Father is the vine grower, and he has a particular kind of fruit that he is looking for. I think it is the fruit of mercy and forgiveness and compassion. It is a special care for the poor and the hungry. The fruit is one that is obviously sustained and grows in life because we spend time being connected to the vine, where our strength comes deep from the bounty and riches of our God. So, bearing fruit. It's not enough just to be connected to the vine, because if we're not bearing fruit, we're told that we get chopped off. And today, we realize, perhaps more importantly, that there's so many more people who are connected to this vine that we do need to work together and care for. So bear fruit. Know that pruning is a part of growing, and this may be a time when we are being pruned. I'd like to provide a few updates for you as well in this conversation. First of all, beginning this Friday, we're going to move the adoration, the opportunity to provide adoration back to the Adoration Chapel, which means that it'll be open at 6:30 in the morning, but it'll close at 8 o'clock at night so that our team can do the sanitizing before it opens up in the morning. So beginning on Friday, you will see signs at church. The one thing is you're going to help each other out, because we think we can safely have, with 6 feet distance, 4 to 6 people in there. So please work together in providing a safe space of prayer. We also believe that there will be greater ventilation in that small area than in the big church. So again, adoration be going back to the Adoration Chapel this Friday, opening at 6:30 in the morning and closing at 8 evening. I've been thinking about how to do confessions, and I know there is very little ventilation in those crying rooms or reconciliation chapels. So beginning on Wednesday, May 20th, next Wednesday, I'm going to begin to host confessions from 5:30 to 6:30 on Wednesday evenings. Wednesdays 5:30 to 6:30 beginning on May 20th. But we're going to do those in the Welcome Center in the Timothy Room. So you'll come in through the doors to the Welcome Center office, and there will be chairs spaced out 6 feet apart. And when there's no one in that Timothy room, the door will be closed. Of course, when it's open, you'll know that it's available. And if you need to pray, you can pause in the Welcome Center. Obviously, you can return back to the Adoration Chapel for some private prayer as well. But we'll begin confessions Wednesdays, May 20th, 5:30 to 6:30 in the Welcome Center in the Timothy room. As you know, last week we began our first live stream of the 9:15 Mass. So it was a beginning, a success. There are things we're going to keep doing to improve it. But again, every Sunday at 9:15, our plan is we will continue to live stream that Mass during this pandemic and beyond the pandemic. That will be one of the ways people can join with us in prayer. And then lastly, you know, we are preparing for the Catholic comeback on May 30th and 31st, the Feast of Pentecost. Again, it's hoping we'll be free from our safer at home. And as you know, it asks us to prepare for 25% capacity, which is 150 to 200 people in the worship space and some overflow into the Welcome Center. We're trying to figure out how to do that, first of all, as we make preparations to make sure that there's safe space when we are in the pews. So every 2 pews will be taped off, and we'll make sure there's 6 feet between either on the other side of the pew you're in. So we're working on all those things. And there will be things that will be different, of course. As you know, don't expect hymnals or prayer sheets. Don't expect bulletins. We will obviously be minimizing social contact at the sign of peace. And as we leave, it'll be back rows going out one at a time so that we don't jam up with each other, so that we respect safe distancing. We'll have to figure out how we're also going to do that as we gather. And again, church will not be opened until 30 minutes before, so we can allow proper cleaning from the prior service. So have a great week. Know that we are asked to bear fruit. And the bearing fruit will demonstrate that we indeed are the Lord's disciples. Be at peace, stay well, and stay safe. Look forward to praying with you this Sunday at 9:15.